Week 7 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few running backs I looked at on the wire this week. The first guy, Deion Jackson of the Indianapolis Colts. So Deion Jackson, what a ball game it was for him in Week 6. I know he left the game towards the end in the fourth quarter with a quadriceps injury, but he had a monster game. 12 carries, 42 rush yards, a touchdown, 10 targets, caught all 10 of them for 79 yards to 28 fantasy points in PPR leagues here for Deion Jackson. So right now available in 57% of fantasy leagues. Obviously, if Jonathan Taylor comes back next week, which I think he will, they just sat him out one more week here, I think this Colt team, then Jackson's going to have no fantasy value, especially with the injury and Taylor coming back. But he's definitely got to highlight if Taylor don't come back with the ankle sprain. And obviously, Nyheim Hines, his concussion was definitely an issue for him. So right now, Jackson, he helped fantasy owners who picked him up, obviously, in Week 6 and started him in the lineup with a big ball game. And right now, if he's healthy and Taylor's not, he's the pickup of the week at the running back position. The next guy is Kenyon Drake of the Baltimore Ravens. So right here, Kenyon Drake took over in the backfield for Baltimore after J.K. Dobbins, he was banged up in that ball game, and we didn't really see him from the second quarter on. So Drake at the Giants in Week 6, 10 carries, 119 yards, a touchdown, a catch for 8 yards. So right here was a big game for Kenyon Drake. Definitely could be a fluky game, even though the Giants, their weakness on defense has been versus the run this season. So Drake right now, he's available in tons of fantasy leagues at 96%. We'll see if Dobbins comes back. Gus Edwards, he's supposedly around the corner as well, is coming back here. So Kenyon Drake, he had a great game, no doubt about it. I don't think he's going to do this consistently. We saw him early in the season, the first couple weeks, get a decent amount of touches and not do much. But he's definitely got a highlight, especially this week where there's not a lot of options at the running back position. The next guy is Caleb Huntley of the Atlanta Falcons. So Huntley and Algier pretty much split carries once again in this ball game. Huntley 16 carries, 59 yards. So he was in there a lot at the goal line in this game. Algier, I believe, had 15 carries. So right now, he's the pure short yardage back over there, Huntley. It's a 50-50 split. And surprisingly, he's out there in 93% of fantasy leagues. So the last couple weeks here for Huntley, not many stats from him, but it's about the workload and getting the short yardage. Week 4 versus Cleveland, 10 carries, 56 yards, a touchdown. Week 5 at Tampa, 8 carries, 34 yards. And then Week 6 versus the Niners, 16 for 59. So right here, Week 7, not the greatest of matchups at the Cincinnati Bengals. That hold the running game down pretty well, giving up the third least amount of fantasy points. But right now, with buys and injuries here, Huntley's a guy widely available, and I would give him a shot at least to stash him on my bench this week. The next running back's Phillip Lindsay of the Indianapolis Colts. So right here, Lindsay, he took over as the only back left in this ball game after Deion Jackson went down. So if all three of these running backs are out for Indianapolis in the upcoming week here in Week 7, Lindsay's going to step in at the starter. So right here, the 2 games he's been back in the NFL with this Colt team. Week 5 at Denver, 11 carries, 40 yards, 3 catches, 14 yards. And Week 6 versus the Jaguars, 3 carries, 7 yards, 3 catches, 5 yards, and a 2-point conversion. So Week 7 at Tennessee, a decent matchup here. But we just got to see how this backfield shakes out over there in Indianapolis. But I definitely got to mention these guys because one of them is going to be a starter if Hines and Jonathan Taylor are out. And Lindsay right now, he's available in tons of fantasy leagues at 88%, and the 5th and final running back I look to get on the wire this week's Mike Boone of the Denver Broncos. So Mike Boone, I know he plays tonight on Monday Night Football here, but he's a guy still available in 60% of fantasy leagues. And to be honest, he looked like the quicker back and better on the passing downs as well for this Denver Bronco team. In Week 5 versus the Colts, 7 carries, 38 yards, 3 catches, 47 yards. So right here, Week 6, good matchup on paper at the Los Angeles Chargers. I give up the most fantasy points to running backs on the season. So Mike Boone here, he definitely could take over, especially with Melvin Gordon banged up as well. So if Gordon goes down, Boone, I think, will be the next guy up, even though I know Latavius Murray is over there as well. But like I said, this week, it's been a light week on the waiver wire for running back. And Mike Boone, to still be out there in 60% of fantasy league, is a guy I think should be rostered in at least 60% of leagues. That's a few running backs I look to add on the wire here for Week 7 of the fantasy football season.